You're listening to Force Majeure, an actual play Star Wars podcast. My name is Adam and I am your host and the GM for the just concluded Coldfire Chronicles campaign. This is our first table chat episode and I am joined around the table by...
Hi, I'm Mikey. I used to play Jiren, who is a Chiss Mystic Advisor, whose emotional strength was his enthusiasm, but his emotional weakness was also his enthusiasm. I've forgotten what it was, actually. Now.
Recklessness.
Recklessness, that's the one. Yes, he was very reckless.
You played him for 4 years, man. You can't have already forgotten what he's...
I've slept since then. We've got new characters to be excited about.
Hi, I'm Ross. I've retired from playing Agatha, the Morale and Warrior Aggressor Colossus, whose emotional strength was his pride, but whose weakness was his obsession.
Hi, my name is Ed Fortune, and I played the character of Oberon Brick, who eventually became the character Baron, which is a whole plot point, but if you don't know that, why are you listening to this bit? He is a human hunter, a Taurus striker. His emotional strength was justice, and his emotional weakness started out as cruelty and then became alienation.
Hi, I'm Mim. I was Lasser, who actually had a surname, which was Stingent, but it never came up, so it wasn't important. And I played the human...
Sentinel Artisan.
Sentinel Artisan. Yeah, see, we're all thinking about other things today. And I played Alassa, the human Sentinel Artisan, whose emotional strength was her curiosity, but whose obsession was weakness, and that might have come up a couple of times.
Whose weakness was obsession.
Did I say my obsession was weakness?
Yes.
Yes. It works.
Either way.
No, I have to get it right, and I'll tell you why. It's because my weakness is obsession. I'm going to do that again. Hi.
No, that was it. That's fine.
Can I just say that I got this in the first take, and that never happened?
The first time.
Woo! Now the campaign is over. Ed nails it.
Oh, God. I don't want to be the new Ed.
Not even Ed wants to be the new Ed.
Oh, God. Well, in that case, you can be cursed by dice rolls that are terrible instead. How about that?
That sounds fair to me.
Okay, anyway, here we go. Hi, I'm Mim, and I played Lasser, who actually had a surname, which was Stingent. So I played Lasser Stingent. She was a human Sentinel Artisan and stayed that way throughout the whole campaign. Her weakness was obsession, but her strength was curiosity, and I hope you saw both of those come out.
I should say, Mim, that I know you've said your surname. Jiren's real name was Jaren Tafi, and it never came up.
Agatha's surname never came up either.
Yeah.
Did you have one?
Yeah, it's on the website. It's been Agatha Hungertier for 4 years now.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
I just say, I really want someone to turn up one day and go, Mr. Hungertier. And we're all like, who? And he's like, hello.
Dr. Hungertier. We need you back at the office.
Do you know what I've just noticed? So everyone in this cast has surnames, but only Ed used them in real life. And every character in the campaign had surnames, but only Ed used it in the name. Is it just like, Ed, you're the old, you have the monopoly on surnames in this
Yes, it's because I paid FFG to let me only have to have exclusivity on surnames, which is why it's Fortune TM.
Yeah, Jiren obviously didn't have a surname being a Chiss. There's 3 different names. So it's Jaren Tafi.
Like a jellicle cat.
Like a jellicle cat, yeah. They're basically jellicle cats, even down to the kind of uncanny valley kind of looks we have.
The horrific CGI and the digital buttholes.
Yeah, he has a digital butthole, you're right.
So other than our names, the names of our characters, is there any other revelation you've had over the last 4 years that you've kept to yourself?
Well, weirdly, I always intended for Oberon at some point to lose his surname and to become something else, but no, we'll get into that in a moment at some point, but yeah.
Well, you get into it now, because really that's what this is about.
The entire idea was that he was more like his family controlled who he was, if you see what I mean, because it was a whole riff on the aristocracy, which 4 years ago was more fun, I'll be honest. Speaking as someone who lived in England, and it's like, yeah, you know what, I'll play a posh git, that'll be fun. And then it's like, it became less and less. As the world changed, you looked at that and went, yeah, these are themes that I'm having less fun playing, but at this point I'm having fun with the characters, so that's fine.
It's really hard to write a dystopia when you're living in a dystopia. They've been reading too much science fiction and going, well, this seems like a good idea.
Yeah, Bill Gibson and Charles Stross are both having hard times with it at the moment. It's like, stop taking our work as a guidebook.
How are we going to make it unrealistic? All right, well, let's have a TV celebrity who's renowned for being mean and stupid with bad hair on TV, and let's make him the world leader. What do you mean it's been done in real life? Gosh, damn it!
I know of several novel projects, including one of my own, where the authors have just gone, nope, I'm writing more fantasy, put more fantasy in, make it less likely.
I don't want to live in a world where Alan Moore is an optimist.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's that point at which you're going, I can't think of anything that would need me to use the phrase, that's not realistic anymore, because my expectations have been thrown out the window for what is and isn't possible in our world now.
It was last election where lifelong anarchist Alan Moore said, I'm going to vote now. And you're like, oh, things have gotten bad.
Things have got serious.
Anyway, Star Wars.
But yeah, so it has been 4 years or thereabouts since we sat round the table for the first time. And I said those opening words, and we opened on a prison planet in the Mid-Rim. And that's where we ended, pretty much, 4 years later. 3 seasons, 60-odd episodes. How are we feeling?
Yeah, it was a good journey. I think whilst we ended in the same place, we were different people.
Yeah.
In character, I mean, obviously, there's a lot happened since the start, since the first episode. I mean, the first episode, we all gathered around our dining room table to do it, and now we live quite far away apart. So, and halfway through, we had a little munchkin. So, it's a... but, we were very, very different people. I mean, Jaren himself, I started off really him being distant from everybody, not really using people more like tools, not putting himself out there. And I think that by the end of it, he'd found a family, which was essentially where I wanted the character to go. It's been a journey.
I think Lassa went through pretty much the same journey as Jaren, but a little differently, because I'd always got the impression that Jaren was actually a softie inside, particularly when I heard more about your backstory and about your time spent looking after orphaned children and stuff like that.
I just really like the film The Quest with Jean-Claude Van Damme. I love the idea of him being like a little bit older than this Fagin-esque kind of, Oliver sort of thing. It just seemed like the right sort of thing to fit with him. But yeah, it's based on The Quest, which is Roger Moore's finest film.
But yeah, Lassa, very similar. She spent a lot of time on her own. She cared about herself because everything else was quite simply too much hassle and not enough benefit. Other people bring complications, and she just wanted to trundle along. And the easiest way to do that is to keep your head down, work hard, and not have to deal with politics, life, emotional difficulties, all of that. And then she ended up having some proper friends who were seriously complicated with a lot of emotional problems, and particularly that I think her friendship between Jaren and her has been one of dislike, a little bit, because you represented everything Lassa wasn't. Sociable, likable, people would warm to you, and you didn't have to work hard for it.
Also, I don't plan anything. Whereas you need to know what we're doing and what the plan is, and basically have a set. When building a wardrobe, Jaren does not read the instructions. We are totally different people.
Lassa reads the instructions, makes it, then dismantles it and does it better.
Yeah.
But every relationship she's had with the crew has evolved from meeting Oberon and deciding early on, right, this is a posh boy psychopath. He's going to have a use, but he's not going to be a good person. We're not going to be a friend. We've been stuck with each other, but he will do the stuff that needs to keep us safe. Okay. He's got a purpose. And like any tool, something with a purpose should be respected for being able to do that purpose well. And then her relationship with Agatha, which has been absolutely phenomenal, from, okay, he's a bit simple, but we can work with that too. No, he is a liability and a danger. I don't want to be anywhere near that too. There's definitely some kind of personality in there. I don't know what it is. I'm just going to roll with it. To, oh my God, what am I doing with this thing? Right. We're going to give it purpose.
He was only a danger to you.
Yes. Not on purpose, but yes.
I'm sorry, we say not on purpose? I accidentally picked you up and threw you. What?
I mean, we had that on the table the season 2 table chat as well.
Yes. You know, Lasse can hold a grudge. No one can hold a crush like an old northern lady.
I don't doubt it.
Played by an Essex girl.
Yeah, there's a bit of this campaign that feels very, in parts, kind of Yorkshire. It's a very English Star Wars campaign, which is weird because, all English people in Star Wars are baddies.
Yes, and 3 prisoners and 1 person who became a murderer.
Well, let's not split hairs about things. However, I'm still not a criminal, I don't think, because I didn't get caught.
Yeah, I was just about to go to say, Jiren never killed anybody. No, I did. No, I did quite badly. No, never mind.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, you did.
Just one, though. You can stop at any time.
Can I quickly ask everybody a question? Because I know I had this.
Yeah.
Did any of you start with a strong idea in your head about your character, which, as you started to play them, you realised it's not going to happen like that because that actually isn't my character? Something you thought was going to be important or relevant, not just a surname, but where you went, actually, this character has got a bit of a life of its own now, and it would not do or would not be the way I originally thought they would.
A lot of decisions about Agatha got made sort of, with preparation of, I had a few moments to think about it, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. And then sometimes I would drop something in which turned out to be massive, but I hadn't thought about it at all beforehand. Like, he's afraid of the dark. Oh, God. The grin on Adam's face when that happened.
Oh, fab.
Interestingly, the only real fling I'd planned in the way from the first episode, because you really come to an episode with voice and personality, nothing really other than that on the first one, was that Jiren was going to speak in the third person. And I think Ross spoke first and spoke in the third person. And I went, right, I'm doing something else.
My original plan when I created the character is I wanted to play if you've ever played like D&D second edition, third edition, there is a cliche that someone always brings to the table a drow ranger, 2 swords. And I kind of was like, right, I'm going to look for the Star Wars version of a drow ranger with 2 swords. And it's going to be this kind of cliche, kind of angst character that I'm kind of expecting to get murdered at some point, or to flip, or to go immediately dark side, or something else to happen. And instead I was like, Adam, I'm having fun. And
I'm sorry.
And as someone who mostly DMs, like Adam, I was like, I'm having real fun. And we had a very long conversation about what the bricks were and what the bricks mean. And I'd read Tarkin, which was the first of the new Star Wars, post-Disney Star Wars books. And Tarkin's like backstory is like, oh, angst, but also English. And I was like, I'm nicking that almost wholesale, right down to the carrion spike, and just like, there we go, we're going to shift it into this gear. And it was quite fun to like bang on Evanescence in the back of my brain and just play like a proper old-fashioned teeny angsty Star Wars character.
Darkness, suffering.
Yes.
The establishing character moment for Oberon/Baron, as you know, at this beginning was, okay, we're going back into the prison. We need to be camouflaged. We need to be stealthy. He's putting on his uniform. Why does he have a costume for this?
And why is it bright red?
Yeah.
Because he's arrogant. The reason he's wearing a hunting uniform is because he believes that he is superior to everyone else. And at that point, he believes that he's superior to everyone and that the world will not, defeat him because he's bright red. It's that old colonial arrogance nonsense going on.
Do you know the first thing that happened that absolutely slammed my concept for Lasse doesn't like anyone at all, was Adam introducing Prinkle? Because I'm not sure if anyone noticed, but in the first episode, I get a message from Prinkle, and I'm like, oh, I hate Prinkle. He's so annoying. And then we met him, and I loved him. I could not help but love him. And it was a complete 360-degree turn of going, actually, sorry, 180. 360 would have brought me back to where I was. It was a 180-degree turn of, no, I love this little furry Shadravan, and I can't not. Anyone not liking Prinkle, that's like looking at a puppy and deciding that now just kick it. It's too cute. So straight away, Adam, I had this firm, I'm not going to like any, but well, no, I like this. I love this Shadravan. I would die for this Chatterfan.
See, up until that point, you just had this voice of the other end of an email who constantly kept dealing with all these Imperial stormtroopers who only know how to make a cup of tea when they set it on fire, and you've just got the tetchy end of Prinkle for years, and then suddenly you met him and you went, oh.
You know, it's someone who he does the cleaning and does the tidying and pings me when something's broken. And looking back, there's no reason why Lassa would not respect and get on with someone who works hard and puts dedication into their job. But I was so set on the idea of Lassa being this antisocial old woman who's older than everyone and therefore doesn't deal with anyone who's vaguely enthusiastic or upbeat or into the world, because she's very much out of the world right now.
Yeah, you chose to be on that planet. We didn't.
Yeah, it was work and a job, and it was work without dealing with people, because she'd had her fun time of being up in the sky with a crew, and then it had all fallen apart. But she wasn't, she doesn't look to try and regain things from the past. She deals with the problems of surviving in the world. So, but without having to be a part of it.
And then Adam tried to kill Prinkle.
Oh,
Succeeded, I think you'll find.
You did succeed. And yeah, I would die for Prinkle is a thing that I suddenly realised when I turned to the dark side for him. Thank you, Prinkle.
I mean, we have many questions around this subject, including, okay, when did everybody work out who was on the dark side and who wasn't?
Well, I kind of worked out who was on the dark side fairly immediately because it was me.
Yes, but it could have been other people as well.
I'm really sorry. I have no idea who was or wasn't.
It was just me.
On the dark side by the end. It just you.
Just me, yeah.
Well, you did do something terrible.
For the right reasons.
I had worked out that he wasn't healing people with force powers, but beyond that, I hadn't gotten on.
So Ed, the person who also runs Star Wars FFG, as soon as Mikey went, I'm using stim packs, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I know what's happened here. But my character didn't.
Yeah.
Like, as a player, I was like, clearly it's Mikey. Rules-wise, that makes sense. My brain just did the numbers and went, cool. And then moved on.
I went down to 12. It wasn't even close.
Wow.
Yes, for listeners of the bonus episode, when Mikey said, so when Ross hears about this, and immediately, as soon as I listened to that episode, I sent him a message.
Yeah. Oh, my word.
I'm sorry, Mikey was there going, how are you not on the dark side? You shot a man in cold blood while he was unconscious.
I think a better question is, or an equal question is, how would you have played that encounter differently had you gone to the dark side?
I don't know, because I'm being a bit poncy right now. When people fall to the dark side, it's not an easy distinction of, well, the good and evil. Practically all of the stories mostly involve having a very good reason. And it's that whole thing of being attached to things makes you do things that would be morally questionable to look after you and yours. So, to be honest, I don't know what else. I don't think she could have done much more to go, oh, I'm evil. But she might have started throwing a bit more violence around. But then she's not a strong person. She doesn't have that kind of strength. She'd probably go back to the things she was doing with poor David. In that, all right, there'll be bugs and things. Everything set to be destroyed if she needed to be. Because that was something Lassa was going towards, which was having an understanding of how to shut down everybody if they became a threat, including her own team. Being able to subdue force powers was an important aspect of that, which was a skill I wanted to develop. She's always had a bit of a suspicion about all this wibbly spiritual foo stuff. So being able at times to go, no, just no, you're not doing that. You're not having that. Going to bring you back down to earth, back down to, I would say, her level, but she had to deal with the fact that she has got spiritual woo as well.
I've got this image of years later, a kind of like a Knights of Ren or a Luke Skywalker type coming into the bar and starting something and being kind of like, look at my power, and that's just being like, nope.
Don't maybe tap the sign.
I think had I actually rolled differently and gone to the dark side, I would have made the choice to put the mask on, because that would have been cool and appropriately evil.
And you were very close to the dark side as well.
Yeah.
You were
Yeah, you were the only ones who didn't roll the 1 for that check.
Yeah, I went down by like a pip, if you see what I mean. And as far as I'm concerned, that's where he stays. So, like, if you're going to write any kind of further, like, after story, he kind of stays at that kind of very close to the dark side, but never quite crossing the line. But had he crossed the line, I'd have put the mask on as soon as I'd taken it, and then I would have tortured 10th Brother some more. And then it would have been a very different ending, because I am assuming you'd have murdered me.
No.
No, to be fair, no, because we look after our own. We'll generally try and knock you out and drag you off.
I'll tell you why, because Jiren did fall, and the difference between Jiren as a dark side and Jiren as not a dark side is the fact that his worldview of who is worth saving reduced to about 5 people, which is why you guys probably didn't see much of a difference, because you were still the people in his coterie. You were still the people that he wanted to save, that he were his family. He would quite happily do anything to keep you guys alive. Everybody else was kind of expendable. So you would not die. You may not like how you would stay alive, but you would still be there because went a bit odd, which is interesting because it is why Jiren settled down. Because I think it was a surprise to Mim to say that Jiren wanted to go and stay on the Sanctuary. And the reason he wanted to go and stay on the Sanctuary is because he wants to keep an eye on the people he cares about. He's realized when falling to the dark side that the important thing is his attachments to people. And I know there are Jedi out there going, oh, that's the wrong way of doing this. But is the fact that he is attached to these people and he needs to keep them safe.
I recently reread Kurt Busiek's comic book Tarnished Angel.
Yeah.
Which is a film noir style story about superheroes. But there's a character in there who's like, essentially he used to be Cobra Commander. He used to be like a big deal supervillain.
Yeah.
And something happened, and it's never quite explained what. But he just became this broker guy and this member of the community, and he's just there, and he never went to jail, and he never really got caught. And everyone thinks he's lovely. Everyone thinks he's fine, and everyone trusts him. But he's still Cobra Commander. And it's like, despite the fact that everyone thinks he's a decent person, he's actually a villain.
Yeah.
And and as soon as everyone forgets it, things go wrong. And it's kind of where I see kind of like elderly Jiren, as at some point there will be like a little story or a little vignette, which is just like, in my head, I don't think I'm just going to write it, but like a little vignette where suddenly it's like, oh, I have crossed the wrong person. Oh dear.
I actually imagined, in the bar eatery sort of thing, somebody kicking off. And then, in Iron Man, where there's the paralyzed thing and there's blood slowly pooling out of your ears and they can't move, that will happen to that person because they've pushed his family and I've gone a little John Wick.
Yeah, that's a little bit evil, man.
Yeah, it is. It is. He has no concept of proportional response when it comes to you guys anymore.
But the thing is, you know that there's generally going to be a leather-gloved hand, really rough workman's gloved hand, tapping you on the shoulder going, Jiren, because she's been at that edge now.
Yeah.
So she knows what it's like to have that idea of being able to seriously hurt people in her hands and then not do it. Or even to have that horrible, powerful mask in her hand and know that it wasn't for her, to have power at the fingertips and not use it. So she's going to be there as a solidifying force for you all the time, because she stared at the abyss and stepped back.
Jiren and Lasser have turned into the odd couple, really, haven't they? They're an old married couple without any of that awkward romance. Because I worked out early on in this season, I quite like arguing with my wife.
In my head, that bar is that kind of cliched bar in the East End, where if you went there in like the 70s or 80s, people were still telling stories about the kind of the crime lords and the crime scene, and you're perfectly safe in that bar, providing that you're not an idiot.
Yeah.
If you are an idiot, you are politely asked to leave, and then it becomes a problem. And it's like in my head, it's like, it's perfectly safe, providing that you're not an absolute tube.
It's worse than that. You politely decide you want to leave and then come to your senses a few blocks away.
I just love the idea that, Baron's going to be wandering off and occasionally coming back from space with stories. There's going to be Agatha walking around with his sheriff's badge, looking after people, and we're all going to occasionally sit there with a pint, not saying anything to each other while we sip it and just going, yeah, well, we've lived a life.
It's interesting that we spent 4 years basically making some NPCs for a place that Adam may use again.
Yeah. Because we had a couple of minutes between the last two episodes. We'd finished the fight with 10th Brother, and we had a couple of minutes to basically said, right, what fate do you think you want for your character? And I came very close to going, Agatha's died in that last battle.
I've got to say, if I was playing Agatha, I would have died in that last battle.
Okay.
I would have gone, nah, this is where I go. I die taking him out.
I came very close to that. I mean, okay, episode 32, I would have just sat back and enjoyed the show, because I wouldn't have had a great part in that episode. I don't know. Because he didn't fall to the dark side, would he have had a Force Ghost? That would have been very different.
No, it's not Oh, God, no. It's not automatic. The entire point behind Force Ghost is that Qui-Gon Jinn kind of knows how to do it. You might have had a voice or something like that.
Light side Force Ghosts are like a specific trick. Dark side Force Ghosts are a bad thing, is the short version. Palpatine can have a Force Ghost, but it's a wraith. It's not like a fluffy glowing thing.
A la Korriban.
Yes, because they're meant to be baddies, let's be honest.
Yeah. And the baddie always comes back for one last stare.
There's a scene in the comic book, The Invisibles, where someone walks up to the main cast of The Invisibles and starts to pick a fight, and King Mob just goes, "This is not the movie that you think it is. Walk away." And it's like, I can see that happening in like Lassa's bar, where like someone, like a different party turn up and we're like, no.
It's not Lassa's bar. See, Jerome, they're already treating us like a married couple. And if you own a bar, I own half of it too.
I'm going to say I've recently reread I can't remember which Pratchett novel it is. I think it's Feet of Clay, and one point where someone walks into the pub where
just thinking that
someone walks into the pub where the guards have a drink or when they're off duty, and what the last thing you want them to do in a pub where the policemen congregate is make them do anything that makes them go on duty.
I have been in a policeman's pub when that happened.
Yeah,
it did not end well for them.
Adam, I think I'd like to spend some of the XP we get for the end of the campaign getting one level of force move, so when that happens, I can reach out, close and lock the door from the other side of the bar.
Yes. But yeah, for me, I suppose, from my side of the screen, so this is the longest campaign I've run in a long time. It's one of the very few I've managed to run to completion, because normally I get distracted and then scheduling hits and my campaigns always kind of peter out. And also it's the longest campaign I've run where there's been gaps in it, if you know what I mean. Because obviously we broke after season 1 and season 3 for Shadows. And I normally really struggle to keep the story in my head when that happens. I do really badly at that. So the fact that I've managed to kind of run a story to completion with those breaks, I have to say I'm pretty proud of. I think it's been quite a good one. Yeah,
definitely. You should be. It's a compelling story as well.
You guys have done amazingly. I mean, both of you, but yeah, well done, Adam.
It was fun. Thank you, Adam. It's been a great campaign.
Yeah, because one is, not just you're a good GM. 2, you've managed to edit it so he makes sense afterwards.
Very kind. I should let people know that our role-playing sessions are 6 hours long usually, and Adam condenses them into an hour. He's very good.
45 minutes if Ed got waffling.
Yes.
Oh, an awful lot of going, cup of tea, I need more tea.
That's all we do. It's like 5 hours of us asking if we want a cup of tea.
And a lot of Mim. Right, Adam, Mim will be back in a moment. She's just busy laughing because someone said something that possibly, with some effort and a crowbar, could maybe be said to be slightly rude.
We don't edit that out of Dungeon Monsieur.
No, a lot of that stays in for DM. But yeah, like I know that there's a question in the listener questions later on around how it kind of worked and how the story changed from my original idea. So I'm going to talk more about that, I think, when we move on to the listener questions. But I will say that it kind of did. I had a very, very kind of rough idea of the shape of the meta plot, as it were, the overarch. But the individuals were kind of written a lot of the time kind of on the hoof, really.
One of the things I think really helped was that, because at the end of the second series of Shadows, we took a bit of a break before starting on Coldfire, and you said, okay, I want to have an individual chat with everybody just to see where your character was going. And I can't speak for everybody else. I think my conversation with you lasted about 2 hours, and we talked for quite a bit on, among other things, how do we get Agatha engaged in the story? What's this bit? What's that bit? How do we improve on this, and what can we work on this? And I thought that was really, really helpful to just come up with ideas of things. I know that in the several weeks following that, I just went back with a piece of paper and just right, okay, I'm going to go listen back to every single episode and just see where I can put more stuff back into Agatha and just see, okay, can I explain that and just follow through on something from this? And then season 3 happened, and probably a couple of those things just didn't happen at all. But Mim just mentioned getting the suppress force skill.
Yeah.
And Agatha also put that on his character sheet because it seemed towards the end of season 2, it seemed like J-Ran's using his influence powers, and some of the force powers seemed like something perhaps we shouldn't trust quite so much. And it was never something we never actually managed to use properly in series 3, partly because I completely forgot about it during the battle with 10th Brother. But I suppose you could say it was a sort of subtext for him not engaging with J-Ran quite so much, but it wasn't really planned out as that. It was just, I would like to be able to prevent me from being, manipulated by the Force.
If you look back at it, though, I very rarely used the influence stuff. I spent a fortune of my XP on influence, and I use it maybe 4 times.
You just hard skill it.
Well, because he doesn't like it. Jiren's entire personality was the fact that people like him, and then suddenly he finds out that people might only like him because he's magic, and it kind of threw him. Really did. So he doesn't like using it because it suddenly, if the thing you're proud of might not actually be something, if everybody's just going with the flow because you're making them go with the flow, it kind of throws you. So he tended to only use it on animals just to stop them from eating us, stuff like that, not people.
You see, for Oberon, that was kind of bundled in with the whole madness that was him assuming that he was as special as he'd been told.
Yeah.
He was, if you see what I mean. And then the dissonance between those two things, because that's not true, is like why he developed the way he developed and why he started. Also, when you can see, when you can read thoughts, feel emotions, and see bits of the future, it's kind of hard to be an absolute sociopath, especially when you're not wired that way.
It's amazing how many politicians manage it.
I have a question for Adam, actually. How different, because you said that this is one of the campaigns that you've ran to completion, how useful has it been the fact that the sessions have been recorded and that you can go back?
Absolutely, yeah. Because I don't tend to go back and I re-listen to these episodes when they're released. Like that's the first time I sit down and I listen to the full episode from start to finish in one sitting kind of thing. But because I spend 16 hours per episode editing it, it gets back in my brain so I can kind of roughly remember what goes on ready for the next session of recording. So yeah, I think it definitely helped. It definitely helped me keep my focus on what I was doing. And also, I don't really like a strict narrative when I'm telling a story. As certainly Mikey and Mim, who've been in like my Dragon Age campaigns and my Pathfinder games and that sort of stuff, know. I tend to shotgun out story hooks within the wider framework and go, this session that I'd originally intended you to go here, we're instead going to follow up on this one rumour that I threw in as a rando thing. Now I need to pull out of nowhere 8 hours of investigating a castle that's fallen under the power of an envy demon. Okie dokie. Whereas for this, because I had to keep in mind that this is a show that people are listening to, and that it's not the kind of podcast where it's just me telling a story and I can run on for as long as that story needs to run on. It's this is my season. I have to make sure that I hit the story beats I need to get to that end point. So being able to listen back helped me keep that in mind of where I need to go. Because I mean, I wouldn't say I've railroaded you, and I certainly hope you've not felt like that. I have tried to give you a lot of options in where you go next to achieve, like, so I had a story beat which was, you need to start prepping for the 10th Brother fight. Where do you want to go for that? So it could have been Port Haven. It could have been anywhere else. The galaxy was your oyster at that point. You didn't need to go back to Port Haven. You could have gone, right, well, I've got contacts from my background on Eriadu. Let's go to Eriadu and get involved with the crime bosses there and start getting some illegal guns. Okay, cool. Right. I will write that for the next time we play. That's where you want to go. Or no, we're gonna have the Tara try to smuggle us to somewhere else here, where we're going to try and infiltrate on one of the core worlds, hit a stormtrooper barracks to steal ourselves an AT-AT or something like that. You know, it was how do you want to run with it?
Oh man, the missions that we could have taken. Yeah.
Yeah.
But come on, it's Port Haven. We have an emotional bond with that place.
You have an emotional bond with that place.
Yeah, but Stopover was a brand new location to three of us, so...
Two of us.
Oh, that building the Stopover was brilliant. Adam went, okay, I've got an idea for this place, but I want you guys to have some input into it. And being able to sit there and go, well, this is the kind of places that legitimate business people who live on the edge, kind of like Firefly, would need. Somewhere which is a little bit more flexible with the rules, but not completely lawless. And then the problem is that places like that always have two levels. There's always the level of, yes, mostly well-behaved people getting on with day-to-day life. But there's also the side that dips a little bit lower when things get a little bit more desperate or things are a bit more interesting. So Lasser went in there having no idea that Mikey's character, Jaren, had also been there and knew the darker side of everybody that she was friends with, because she'd always been there as a legitimate business person whose crew had just had a bit of a rough month or whatever.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because you two obviously were talking on chat about it, and I was around, so I kept suggesting things in, and then I contacted Adam later and said, "Can we do this? And can we do that?" And it was nice having kind of a thing that you weren't aware of going on. My one regret is that you didn't come to the arms dealer, which was a shame because I really wanted you to see underneath, behind the thing. I think at the time you were worried that Lasser had done a lot of big points, but I wanted to see your reaction. But it was a shame, but never mind.
That is something that has... The difference between, I think, doing a podcast and doing a normal game is I am more aware of, to use the phrase, screen time for different characters. And I can get a little bit, oh, no, I've talked a lot this event, or this place seems to have a lot of things that Lasser would interact with. So I think I should pick a couple that I really would enjoy personally interacting with and then leave the rest for other people. When the mask was available in the final scenes and there was that, oh, Lasser's got it, what's going to happen with it? My head was a bit of a buzz because obviously, oh, how fascinating would it have been to put the mask on? And then sitting and realizing, both in character and out of character, because I do have a thing where I end up trying to think a lot like my character in an actor kind of way. I let the character build themselves as they go. I give them the bones and then they flesh themselves out. And having that mask and going, oh, it would be cool in game to put it on and see what happened. And then Lasser's voice going, really? What am I going to do with it? What do you think? You think I'm suddenly going to pull out dual lightsabers and go up there? It's not her. And then the meta game are going, not only is it not her, other people would be cooler going mental in the mask because you are not the cool character for descending in the dark side. You've had your wibble.
I was very much the same. When you had the mask, I was not thinking this could be our break and break. It's like, oh, I hope she passes it to somebody else because Lasser putting on a mystical item.
It's not Lasser.
Doesn't fit in my brain. I mean, I understand why you would have done it, but Jaren wanted it, but Jaren didn't want to put it on because obviously he wants to keep it away from you guys because he knows it's bad. But I really kind of liked the idea of Baron putting it on. That's what I wanted. And that would have been a fight.
Although I was worried if Agatha had put it on, that would have been like the mask, this whirlwind of chaos.
The other two would have been great.
I mean, we didn't test that because remember this point when I was talking with Adam, in our little chat before the series 3 kicked off, and we think, well, Agatha hasn't been tempted by the orb. He's the only one who hadn't really dealt with it after we left the Costa the Barroom by that point, and it just wasn't something we hadn't even considered whether or not he'd be tempted by it. And we never actually got into a position where he had the opportunity to grab it and see what he could do with it.
I mean, without meaning to tell you what your character does, that makes a lot of sense because Agatha has always come across as being about their personal strength. It's a matter of pride and stuff that they, the Force gives them physical prowess, but it's all you. Even the Force is part of you and it's your unique thing. So whereas Lasser saw it as a tool and as an engineer, a good tool is worth something. So she's interested in it. It's a power source for making things happen in a mechanical sense for her. And then you've got the two boys who are, ooh, it's mystical force powers. So they have an academic interest in it and an understanding about the dangers of it, which makes it interesting to them. For you, it's not really something necessary because you've got all the power you need to do stuff, and you are so based on yourself going out there and fighting. And you don't even worry about loads of armor or loads of weapons and stuff. A weapon for you is fun, but you're all about the hands. So I think the fact that you never had to deal with it says an awful lot about your self-confidence and your reliance on your independent strength rather than latching onto other items that could do stuff.
I'm not going to disagree with that point, but he did reach the character development point of learning how to use that lightsaber thing might come in handy.
Well, yeah, lightsabers are cool.
At some point, he has developed, oh, wait, getting help from other sources, like laser swords or my teammates, might be a good thing to develop.
Yeah, I mean, going up against someone with a laser sword and going, all right then, unarmed combat versus a laser sword. You're not an idiot.
So Baron's thinking with the whole lightsaber training is essentially going around to Agatha and going, don't die. This is how, because you will get into a fist fight with someone with a lightsaber because I've met you.
Exactly.
And this is 100% what you do. So,
And it's 100% what I did.
it's what you need to know to not die. I think if Baron had the mask, light side Baron holding the mask, which I don't think actually ever happened, would just go, that's for someone else. I've worked so hard to be myself. I've always been the tool of someone else. I've always been, because you're right, he is a tool.
Sorry.
He's always been like,
The instrument.
yeah, he's been an instrument. He's always been someone, he's been molded to be a certain way. And his story arc is becoming himself, which is why he picks his own name, removes his surname, devastates his identity, and becomes, he's just someone who wanders around and does stuff and tries to be helpful. It's just that he's also very kind of melodramatic in the way that is executed. So Lightside Baron looking at that mask is like, oh, it's a job offer. No, not interested. Darkside Baron would be lost. That is a person who is lost with their identity. They're about to become the prodigal or whatever, and it's like they would be like, oh, it's a job offer. Yeah, I'm looking for a vacancy. Slap. And then we have a conversation with Adam, and Adam's like, right, this happens and whatever. And then it's a cool cutscene.
Yeah.
To look up after you've played the game, but I'm really glad it went the way it went.
Interestingly, I think the only way that Jiren would have worn the mask is if one of you guys had already been on the floor.
And that is why you weren't tempted.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jiren wasn't desperate enough to need what it was offering.
Because that's the only times that Jiren uses when he used the orb, it's because we were being surrounded by those creatures, and it was myself and Lassa.
Yeah. At the point that you picked up the mask,
yeah,
we knew that you'd fallen, but no one else in the party knew that you'd fallen. And I don't know whether or not you thought you weren't tempted because you'd already fallen, whereas Lassa hadn't. No, it's because Jiren wasn't desperate enough. So the mask knew that you weren't going to make a deal, so there was no point.
Jiren wasn't tempted, essentially, yeah.
Whereas everybody else was on that knife edge where they could have fallen. Even if Beren or Agatha or Lassa would have been Darkside at that point, they would still have been offered. Because the mask wasn't, it was about sacrifice and desperation as opposed to trying to pull you into the wider dark side. It had its own agenda. It's
interesting because there's either not tempting or I think the mask would probably have had a go at trying to tempt him, and then it'd be go, oh, he's already put me on. Oh, all right, okay. Come to the full.
That was the second time. My Force vision was about this mask, and I'd had the exact same thing of, do I use it or do I not? And at the time, she was absolutely in a calm place, and it was very academic looking at it going, well, this is a broken thing, and you don't use a broken thing. You find something better. And then actually putting her in a situation where she was out of water because she's not a fighter. She's not a person that really thrives in these situations. And that absolute blind panic of, well, I need to be able to do something and I don't know what to do. And you've given me this broken thing, but it might make me more useful in this situation. So it was a very different reason for not using it, but it still came down basically at the end to, it's not the right tool for the job. Only instead of the mask not being the right tool for the job, Lassa wasn't the right tool for that mask to use to be a powerful weapon. It was interesting for me.
Before you go, I just need to say, 10th brother, Coldfire, cutting off his Leku when he put on the mask being a thing that was just a kind of a symbol. was really powerful. Because that's him cutting off his compassion and everything. Because that's your higher brain functions for a Twi'lek. And in fact, learning that he's not actually done that, but that was his sacrifice, was a good hit for me. I really liked finding out he still had his Leku. So,
thank you.
It's the horror, isn't it? It's the horrifying, because that's a horrifying image that he's literally, almost, we were talking before we started about trauma movies and this sort of thing, but it is the gross out of scooping into your skull and pulling out, or reaching into your chest and pulling out your heart sort of thing. And it's that sort of moment, but we all took it literally because none of us understand the species enough to go, because if it was him pulling out his heart, we'd be like, that's a metaphor, because we all have hearts. None of us have Leku, so we don't go, they're just weird head snakes.
And between the four of us, we have 1 dot in medicine, so there's no way of us.
Was this the vision at the end of season 2? Or
end of season 2, yeah.
Because I remember thinking in the end of season 2, right, we're all still somewhere in this vision world, in this temple, and we're all literally at Coldfire's mercy, which was the pun I only got during the one-on-one
roll credits.
Yeah, I got that pun, long after it became relevant. But I assume when Series 3 kicked off, we would still be trapped in this vision world, and I assumed that 10th Brother was right there, threatening around us. I assumed we were going to wake up and, oh dear, now we need to get away from this guy. And the plot went very, very differently, very, very quickly.
I'm just trying to think what a dark side version of Baron would have sacrificed, and it wouldn't have been the party, is the thing.
Yeah.
Lassa had that same thing, yeah. Couldn't let go of people.
He would have made a deal, though, because the thing that he wants above that is vengeance. He wants revenge, if you see what I mean. So he probably would have sacrificed everything else and just given in, if you see what I mean. It's like, providing I can steer this hurricane, I will become your hurricane, providing I can steer it in a direction once in a while.
As we've stressed a few times, the dark side isn't necessarily bad. It's just, it reduces what you're good towards, that's all. So
you become less than what you ever can be. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your destiny becomes this.
Yeah.
And that's it. And for any character with like the fortune telling skills, which the FFG version of the game is full of, which I love, actually, that's really powerful, because they're not just cool powers. They are storytelling prompts, they are acting prompts, to sound pretentious. They are improvisational cues. The most powerful force power is yes and, I suppose.
Yeah.
Interesting. So when I was thinking about the mask and it asked me to make a sacrifice, immediately it goes through all the physical things, because that's the obvious. All right, well, I might have to cut off something. And that would be really detrimental to Lassa, because she's a creator, an artisan. And then about sacrificing the party, I couldn't sacrifice the party in a physical way, but she was willing to isolate herself and lose all of you in that sense of I'll do this fight with you, but I'd never be able to see you again. And that did come out as a possibility for what she'd do. But in the end, it was like, well, this is all pointless. I do love how Lassa is such a big part of my brain now, going, it's a bloody stupid thing to do, isn't it? Yeah, it is. All right, Lassa, never mind.
I left in most of that conversation that you had with yourself about what you could sacrifice in that, because you won't have listened to the final cut of that episode, I imagine, by this point, and it's not been released at the point we're recording this for the listeners. But yeah, I left in an awful lot of that discussion you were having with yourself, because I really liked how it showed your thought processes and Lassa's thought processes from the starting point through to the debate stage, because there was one bit where you were like, will I? Yeah. And then actually, no, I will. But yeah, I left all that in.
It is amazing. Sometimes she is just this little voice in the back of my head, and she walks in big combat boots and just kicks down the door and goes, no, that's a stupid idea. Stop it. And once you get to that point, it's like, no, the decision has been made. Now I'm just gonna work out exactly how she's made it, and I see it now.
I really want Samwise Gamgee to walk into the bar. It's like in my head in a floating vagabond way, because I can imagine Lassa just be like, "I don't need to say anything."
Lassa being in the Lord of the Rings, I could say, so you carried around this metal ring touching your physical body for how long? Put it in a bloody box or a container, and then put it in a backpack. Or if you want, you can have it tied round your neck, but in a little tiny in a locket, for heaven's sake. You bloody idiots. Yeah. That's what she would have been like. Take it in turns. You could see what it was doing to him. Never mind.
Call yourself a friend?
Yeah. She would have been very, I will be the ring bearer. There's 7 of you. You honestly tell him, all right, fair enough. Put it all on the one idiot. All right.
Well, yeah, looking at the time, I think we're probably getting towards the end of the table chat. And the next episode, we'll do all our Q&As. So, or rather, the listener Q&As. So I suppose the last questions here really is there anything else that we want to talk about cast to cast before we get on to the listener questions?
Just vaguely interested, in a kind of a Freaky Friday type thing, if you weren't playing the character you were playing, who would you prefer to play of the others? Because I think I've played a lot of Baron type characters, but I think I'd like to play Oberon. I think I would enjoy playing that kind of stoic sort of mountain, unflinching kind of just get things done.
Do you mean Agatha?
Yeah, I do. I'm going to say again. I think I'd like to play Agatha and cut that in. Oh, my word. It's been like weeks since we played. Sorry, I've forgotten who everybody's called.
We introduced ourselves right at the beginning of the program, man.
Yeah, but wrong. But wrong in several cases.
When you asked that question, actually, Agatha was the one that also sprung to my mind because it's like that kind of like stoic man mountain. There is a bit of me that would have a lot of fun playing Jiren because there's a specific Geordie word for it that I can't say because it's sweary. But someone who talks, someone who's silver-tongued.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Jiren, but all over as well. But
I'm going to say I'd like to be Jiren, but basically I've kind of butchered Jiren and shoved him into Dungeon Monsieur by turning him into Django, my cat book bard. So yeah, there's a bit of Jiren shoved in there because he just looks fun, and having that happy-go-lucky, free and easy, water off a duck's back kind of personality.
Water off a duck's back? I'm the only one who turned to the dark side.
Yeah, I know. But that thing is, that's what happens when someone spends so long being able to easily deflect serious situations by going, yeah, it's all right, but this is what we're going to do. Yeah, I know that's happened, but I'm going to steer you all towards a positive outcome. You spend so long keeping things ticking over by looking after everybody. There's a point at which you go, I don't know how to look after anybody apart from to do something extreme. You know, it's the people pleaser who eventually breaks down because they don't know what to do anymore. So it's fine.
Well, nobody with a name got hurt. He was only a stormtrooper.
That poor stormtrooper.
Don't name him. Don't name him. Please don't name him.
Oh, before we go, I'm quite interested to hear that Mikey's thing for Jiren was, I'll wing it. My character, in case people didn't get it, very much based on Terry Pratchett's Witches characters. An awful lot of Granny Weatheraxe with a little bit of the cheekiness of Nanny Og thrown in. And yeah, so there we go. That was a lot of the concept for her. I wanted an older woman who had authority and couldn't be pressured by other people because she was absolute in her abilities to do what she does for a living. And she's been doing it long enough that she wouldn't be a pushover from external forces. You know, that was the idea. I wanted someone who was strong-willed and strong-minded. But just like Granny Weatherwax, did have a softer side and wasn't a bad person, but would need to be cajoled into being open with people. So that was where her concept came from.
So saying on that, I've just quickly skimmed back through some of the notes that I made with all of you in your one-to-ones. And the big bolded note for Lassa that came out of here is, need to find some way to invest her with the party to make sure she stays. Mim, did I achieve?
You absolutely did. Absolutely did. It was hit and miss there for a little bit. There was some real moments where it felt like everyone is crazy and this is really dangerous. Why would I be here? But the fact that we had to band together, I think the thing that really sealed it was when you made what was happening to us a threat to other people that she'd cared about. And she got to witness how hard it would be to be on her own. Absolutely. You cut off all backstory exits that she could have gone off and just done stuff. It's like, well, wherever she goes, she would have been in danger and the danger to others. And the fact that she got to witness all the crew changing and bonding was brilliant. It was that point at which she was making little steel sculptures out of wires and stuff for everybody as we were fixing Jaren's ship to be our new ship. And it's like, yeah, this is her family. She's still not going to be one of those open people that, come on in, let's hug it out. But yeah, she grew to love and, more importantly, respect everyone for their journey and became a crew. So that was brilliant. Thank you so much. Yeah.
My answer to the question, just to finish off, I would pick Lasse. Lasse, because Lasse has opinions with a capital O, and you can go far playing that. So
yeah, a lot of opinions there.
Mm.
Right, well, I think that's it then for this episode. One more to go, beloved listeners. One more to go, beloved cast. We've just got our Q&A episode, which we're going to record shortly, and then that is a line drawn under the Coldfire Chronicles, our first full campaign.
I'm going to miss Frinkle. I'm going to miss Pyjack. I'm going to miss arguing with Jiren and looking at Agatha going, what are you doing? I'm going to miss looking at Baron and going, well, it's all right. He's still young. He's dealing with stuff. He's going to go paint his room black. It's fine. You know. Oh, I'm really going to miss being Lasse, and I hope I grow up to be a grumpy old woman just like her.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. And before we leave you entirely, this episode's patron is that legendary cryptid, the Ohio Yeti. Thank you very, very much for backing the show. We are very glad to have you with us, especially here at the end of things. And speaking of the end of things, we have one more episode to go in this season. It is our listener question and answer episode. It's coming up next. It's quite a long one, but I think it's worth the listen. I certainly hope you agree. You'll have to let me know what you reckon when you catch us next time. Force Majeure is played using the Star Wars Force and Destiny game system by Fantasy Flight Games and Lucas Books. Our intro music for this season is Unholy Night by Kevin MacLeod, and our outro music remains Suburban Outlaw by Forget the Whale, both used with gratitude under the Creative Commons license. If you like the show and want to interact with us, we are on Twitter, we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, all of which are at Force Majeure Pod, though Twitter is probably where you're going to find us more regularly. If you enjoy what we do and want to support the show, there's 3 ways you can do that. The first is via our Patreon at patreon.com/forcemajeurepod. The second is by buying us a coffee at ko-fi.com/forcemajeurepod. And the third way is by rating and reviewing us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, anywhere where you can find us. We really like reviews. It tells us that we're telling the stories that you want to hear and helps other people find us. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time.